Welcome to Inner Love Trauma, a channel dedicated to empowering survivors of toxic and narcissistic abuse. My name is Charmaine, and I am a thriving aware super empath and a certified trauma-informed life coach. Having experienced my own share of traumatic experiences, I understand how debilitating the effects of abuse can be. It is my passion and purpose to help others recover from the aftermath of trauma, heal their wounds, and have a fulfilling life. As a trauma-informed life coach, I have spent years studying the effects of trauma on the mind and body. Through my experience and education, I have developed a deep understanding of the complex nature of trauma and its lasting impact on our lives. Narcissism and bipolar disorder are two distinct mental health conditions that can manifest in different ways. Narcissism is a personality disorder characterized by a grandiose sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy, and a need for admiration. People with narcissistic personality disorder often have an inflated sense of their own abilities and achievements and can be preoccupied with fantasies of success, power, or beauty. They may also exploit others for their own gain and struggle with relationships due to their self-centeredness. Bipolar disorder, on the other hand, is a mood disorder characterized by episodes of mania and depression. People with bipolar disorder may experience periods of elevated or irritable mood, increased energy, racing thoughts, and impulsive behavior during manic episodes. They may also experience periods of deep sadness, hopelessness, and low energy during depressive episodes. While there can be some overlap in symptoms, the underlying causes and treatment approaches for these two conditions are quite different. Narcissistic personality disorder is considered a personality disorder and typically requires long-term psychotherapy to address the underlying issues. Bipolar disorder, on the other hand, is a neurological condition that can be managed with a combination of medication and therapy. Let's look closer at bipolar disorder. Before we do that, hit that like button and share this video. If you want to make awesome videos like this one, check out Pictory AI. All you need is a script or write what you want to say. If you can copy and paste, you can create a video in as little as 15 minutes. Click the link below. Learn how you can make $500 a day. What causes bipolar disorder? There is a reason for everything that happens. In many school subjects, cause and effect has always existed, and one cannot happen without the other. Bipolar disorder, how does it affect you? In light of the fact that the illness is considered an effect, what are the causes? There is still much to be learned about bipolar disorder, and researchers are still trying to figure out its exact cause. Bipolar disorder is believed to be caused by chemical imbalances in the brain. However, what is the cause of the chemical imbalance? The cause is believed to be environmental triggers and heredity. We should take these things one at a time. The chemical composition is unbalanced. Dog bites, osmosis, and a lithium shortage are believed to cause chemical imbalances in the brain. Nevertheless, that misinformation causes a great deal of confusion in the minds of the public. The chemical imbalance in the brain may be caused by psychological or biological factors. Biological explanations begin with genetics. Bipolar disorder runs in families and is genetically vulnerable. Inheritability plays an important role in the disease. There is a theory that bipolar disorder is caused by neurotransmitter systems. Neurotransmitters and mood disorders have been linked for decades, according to scientists. Serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine levels can be low or high in people with bipolar disorder. The receptors and sensitivity of nerve cells have also been shown to change in studies. Bipolar disorder is believed to be caused in part by neurotransmitters, but their precise role has not been determined. They are still conducting research. The chromosomes and genes that are involved in bipolar disorder are being studied by geneticists. Their goal is to determine whether these chromosomes or genes occur individually or in tandem. Some chromosomes in the gene GRK3 have been associated with bipolar disorder. Scientists and geneticists generally agree that 50% of the disease is caused by genetics, and the other half by environmental factors. They are still conducting continuous studies in order to discover what activates genes or chromosomes, and how brain components impact human behavior. Sophisticated tools are required. Molecular knowledge may be acquired so that new therapies can be developed to ease the suffering of bipolar sufferers. Triggers of environmental change. There are many stressful events in life, and this is what contributes to bipolar disorder manifestations. An individual may experience stress due to the loss of their job, the death of a loved one, or any number of other factors. According to studies, the events result in bipolar disorder symptoms. As a result, once bipolar disorder is triggered, it will quickly progress and continue. All in all, scientists were able to develop a model called diathesis stress. This is a term used to describe someone who is susceptible to diseases such as bipolar disorder. Individuals inherit physical predispositions that predispose them to problems they might encounter in the future. An inherited tendency as well as stressful conditions are needed to produce a disorder. You are likely to suffer from bipolar disorder if you inherited some genes making you susceptible to it, and if something in your life triggered it. Theories about this disorder are still being refined by scientists. How does bipolar disorder work? The term moody or even insane may have been used historically to describe people with bipolar disorder. A manic depressive disorder was later diagnosed. In general, the term bipolar disorder is preferred to this one. Bipolar disorder is characterized by mania and depression. Besides these two aspects, there are other aspects to the illness. Women and men are equally prone to bipolar disorder. The prevalence of bipolar disorder is about 1% of the population. There are two types of mania, hypomania and full-blown mania. Hypomania is simply an intense state of energy and productivity. A bipolar disorder sufferer who never goes past this point can be a great salesman or a high-powered businessman. Most people are just a few steps away from full-blown mania. Manic episodes tend to have more devastating effects on people with bipolar disorder. People with bipolar disorder become so engrossed in their activities that they undertake ventures that have no actual chance of success, even though they are not aware of this fact. No consideration is given to the consequences of actions. For basic needs, money may be spent. In the absence of funds in an account, checks can be written. Additionally, bipolar disorder patients are often overly generous and give away things they treasure or cannot afford. These gifts tend to be regretted later on. Bipolar disorder patients' manic states can also be characterized by gregariousness beyond that of a typical outgoing person. The result may be unwanted pregnancies, diseases, or relationship damage, among other things. It is possible for bipolar disorder to progress into psychosis during its manic phase. Delusions or hallucinations are common symptoms. Those with bipolar disorder are unable to protect themselves from hazards in their environments because they don't know what's real. A manic episode is usually followed by a depressive episode. Bipolar disorder can cause people to withdraw into seclusion, even stay in bed for days at a time. A negative impact will be felt on sleeping, appetite, and energy levels. When bipolar disorder is in the depression phase, all threats must be avoided, especially guarded against, which is the gravest danger for the person. Drug and alcohol abusers also have a term for bipolar disorder. It is called dual diagnosis. Teenagers and adults are most likely to suffer from it. Often, bipolar disorder is more difficult to diagnose and treat due to these addictions. There are a number of problems that bipolar disorder patients face. Some people have found ways, through medication, therapy, routines, and other methods, to have some degree of control. Problems such as these have plagued people for centuries. Until recently, there was no adequate treatment for the condition. Despite the fact that the name for bipolar disorder is newer than the disease itself, whatever it is you call it, the effects can range from difficult to deadly. It can be crucial to receive treatment. An understanding of suicidal tendencies through bipolar disorder. In order to go into the details, we will reroute our ideas to discover the most common reasons why people with bipolar disorder commit suicide. Bipolar disorder can be classified into two subtypes, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. These two subtypes can serve as diagnostic guides. Type 1 bipolar disorder. If the person does not have previous episodes of depression, he or she may have at least one or two manic episodes. Type 2 bipolar disorder. Someone must have experienced depression and hypomania at least once. A hypomanic episode usually lasts just a few days and is not at all severe in comparison to a manic episode. Symptoms of hypomania include elevated mood, irritability, and changes in everyday functioning that do not require hospitalization. The duration of depression is much longer than that of hypomania in this case. Idiopathic cyclothymia. The milder form of bipolar disorder is considered to be included in the type. There are moderate mood swings associated with cyclothymia, compared to the extreme swings displayed by bipolar people. The psychosis it is at this point that bipolar becomes severe. There are episodes of delusions and hallucinations that detach the person from reality. Some people believe they are someone or hear and see things that aren't really there. It all boils down to one thing when it comes to this disorder: suicide. His behavior is overwhelming his thoughts and feelings because he no longer understands what is happening to him. Because he believes that he cannot do anything good, he commits suicide. There are suicides. The sin of suicide is unforgivable. However, it has become the most effective way to resolve every issue that arises in a person's life. Family members should see to it that someone in the family who has been diagnosed with the disorder is cared for. In order to rule out the possibility of idealism, any thoughts of committing suicide should be addressed immediately. A medical checkup is recommended for the individual. Suicide risk appears earlier in the course of illness. In order to diagnose suicidal tendencies, one must observe signs and symptoms such as feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, having thoughts about dying or discussing the afterlife, has a feeling that she or he is just a burden to her or his family and friends, uses drugs and alcohol excessively, goodbye notes written at random, preparing for a near-death situation by organizing affairs. People suffering from early stages of bipolar disorder are more likely to commit suicide. Whenever you or someone you know feels suicidal, regardless of whether they are bipolar or not, always find ways to get rid of it, such as calling a doctor for help and advice, never leaving suicidal people alone, and making sure there are no access points to harm the person could use against himself. To completely prevent the risk of suicidal attempts, one must understand the different causes of this disorder. We must take care of our lives first. The fact that it was wasted is a pity. It is difficult to understand bipolar disorder due to its stigmatizing nature. The assumption is that people with bipolar disorder are untrustworthy, unstable, or lazy. National Association of Mental Illness describes bipolar disorder as a mood disorder with irregular moods and energy levels. The origins of this illness are still unclear, as NAMI points out. The problem affects over 3% of the United States population, and is often associated with lower wages, higher unemployment rates, and difficulty finding work. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder that affects the way a person feels. It affects their energy levels and mood levels so that they experience two extreme states, mania and depression. An episode of manic depression is marked by a high level of energy, anxiety, and restlessness. Projects are usually the result of manic episodes. Depression episodes are characterized by low moods and a lack of energy. In a piece on the Huffington Post, Tom Watton dispels myths about bipolar disorder. He writes, "The horrible symptoms of depression and mania that can occur when an individual is in a disordered state are well known. They include physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. The manic and depressive sides of bipolar disorder have wreaked havoc on my life and those around me," he explains. In order to illustrate how serious this illness is, I almost lost my life. However, he also talks about bipolar in orders, a movement and shift in understanding of bipolar disorders. While bipolar disorder is a serious illness, it is also important to remember that it can be handled and lived with, and it can be coped with, and great people have had it, and have led wonderful, successful, and incredibly fruitful lives despite it. Bipolar disorder and depression are two different illnesses, we must remember. However, that these illnesses are complex, and modern medicine does not have all the answers. There is no way to prevent these illnesses yet. Bipolar disorder is not yet known to be caused by genes. Despite our progress in understanding bipolar disorder, there is still a long way to go. There is no better way to understand those with bipolar disorder than to be understanding, supportive, and loving toward them. Thank you for watching. Watch the next video.